I don't think he'll be back unless it's some sort of incredible apology tour, but I don't think Johnny Somali's the man for that.
Wow.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Abroad in Japan podcast. Probably the best way of learning about life in Japan without actually being in Japan. I'm your host Chris Braun and we're joined as always by England's top Japan enthusiast, Mr. Pete Dawson himself. Pete, how the devil? How you doing? What's going on?
I'm good, Christopher. I am in the Stack HQ right now, recording the Abroad in Japan podcast. So I'm just really happy about things. I'm happy to be out of the house for the first time in January. That's what it feels like, anyway. And
I prefer your shed. I prefer your home set. It's
you
cozy.
do like my home
like...
set because it's got old retro TVs, which is exactly the same as what you've got in your background, but yours is a hell of a lot more neon flecked and just better.
Well,
general,
your TV works. Mine.
That's true. Yeah.
Ragged.
Well, your TV did work, but then Premier 2 Pete wasn't he trying to get the Nintendo working and he broke one of them?
Yeah, we had like a Super Famicom when I first got the studio in Sendai, and it was the pride and joy of the fleet. It was I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
And then Pete Premier 2 turned up and was like, I'm just going to move the cables around, guys. Pulled a cable out and then nothing worked ever again. So
yeah, I'm just going to make my adjustments in the back of this TV and it never worked again.
Don't know what, he's sabotage. And then the last time he was in the Sendai studio, it was a live stream on his Premier 2 channel, and he was like, the audit, my followers want me to steal one thing from the studio. And I was like, this is a terrible idea.
Deeds to the
I
studio.
don't like this.
The deeds to the office.
Well, he stole my Game Boy, my beloved Game Boy, and I haven't seen it since. So he breaks the Famicom, he steals the Game Boy. What is his vendetta against Nintendo? What's he doing?
Has he had my headphones? Because I've lost a pair of earphones, in-ear earphones, and they're black and I can't find them anywhere. They're just not very easy to be found in a room, and I'm yet to find them. I bought them. I had them for about 3 days, and then I lost them, and I'm absolutely fuming. Has he had them away?
He's like the boogeyman. He's like the boogeyman, isn't he, old Pete? It's Pete that stole it. Pete destroyed the car. Pete took everything. He's a whisper on the wind. He's a whisper on the wind.
A lot of people don't know, but Premier 2 stands for how many times he's been in prison. He's a really problematic individual.
Oh, poor old Pete. Poor old Pete.
Poor old Pete.
We do love him, so.
We do love him.
But I mean, he's a good friend, I suppose. He's not as bad as Ryotaro. I don't know if you saw the most recent edition of Journey Across Japan, Journey Across the Destroyed Windscreen. Yes, Ryotaro put a rock in a boot. I don't think that was deliberate, but he cleaned my windscreen with a boot. There was a rock in it, and he scratched the windscreen, and it's directly in front of the driving plate, directly in front of the driving seat, in front of the steering wheel. This horrible scratch mark, and I don't know what to do about it.
So you. I very much enjoyed this this video because I did a similar thing, but with just the windscreen wipers on my car. So my screen's all scratched up. But I just like the fact that you went down like the true crime route. We could have a true crime podcast here at Stack HQ of you trying to find out who keyed your window. And with the car, you bought it for a very small amount of money, the smallest amount of money on the lot, in the second-hand car lot. And is it still a part of you that sort of goes, that's I've lost money here? He's ruined that car now. The windscreen's all broken up.
I do wonder, like the whole comment section was torn over how to solve the windscreen. Like someone was like, get some toothpaste and a spoon and fuck the windscreen. And it's like I don't know how to do this sort of stuff. I don't know what to do. I think Ryotaro should find a way out of this. To be honest, the car, the car cost just over $1,000, I think. But it's in really good condition. When we got it, everything worked. Everything was beautiful. I love that car. It's such a good car. And that's to what happened to it. You'll have to find out in the last episode. Drove it off a bridge, and it's Pete stole it,
torched it,
and
Pete torched it.
Well, it's just a shame that we drove it 2,000 kilometers or whatever around Japan, and the real enemy was in the car the whole time. The enemy was within, Trojan fucking shit, Trojan horse, Ryotaro with the Wellington boot and the rock. Honestly, bastard. God damn it. But anyway, what have you done to your... How's your car? What's the saga of the Toyota? Have you got out the car park? Have you driven it around London yet? Have you got a few taxi fares?
Well, the update, quite hilariously, is that couldn't get in the. I spoke about this a few weeks ago, and I'll be very brief because I realise the importing of a car is not really that interesting. But they had it in Southampton. They couldn't figure out what was happening with the battery. They kind of figured that out, I think. And then because of UK laws, you have to have a rear fog light for some bloody reason. You've got to have a rear fog light, so they've got to fit that before they go for the MOT. And they couldn't get in the boot, Chris. They just couldn't get in the boot to fit this fog light.
Crowbar.
And I'm like, right,
into your Toyota Crown.
Okay, so I had to go down the asking bigger boys on Facebook, Toyota Century Owners Group route.
Toyota Century.
And it turns out I've not actually got a master key for the car. I've only got the key that you give to the person, outside a hotel. What do you call it? Valet mode key. I've only got a valet key. I've not actually got a master's key for the car. It's all just solid work from the people who exported the car.
This is what you get for importing a Toyota Century, beloved Japanese car from the 90s.
I can't even get in my own car properly.
It's so sad. The journey it went on, like 3 or 4 months at sea, from Yokohama to Pete Donaldson's drive, and it's not got to the drive. It's just stuck in Southampton, and there's no key. So what the hell happens now? How do you get into the car, apart from a crowbar?
I believe they had to drill a lock and put a new lock in.
This poor
That's one way
car
to do it, I suppose, isn't it?
Shreds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a disaster. My God, Pete. Well, I hope you get the car one day. And
Me too.
When you do, don't
Chris.
let fucking Riotro anywhere near it. We got a story this week from Josh, who says, and it begins, hello, Chris and Pete. This is a story from an 18-day solo trip I did last summer across Honshu and Hokkaido, equipped with the Japanese I'd learned throughout high school and university. I was in a small ramen restaurant in Hakodate one evening, tucking into a delicious miso ramen. Sorry, miso. I always say miso, and Charla kills me. It's one of those words that, be careful, it's miso, not miso, in the same way people say samurai instead of samurai. Get that right. Or
would you not think that miso, miso, what's it? So how would you, if it was going to be miso, how would you write that? Would that be M-I-I, miso?
No, it's just M-I-S-O. It's just miso. I don't really know why. It's just Japanese phonetics, isn't it? Miso. Anyway, Josh was tucking into his miso ramen with the samurai. And as I began slurping away, a pair of exuberant Japanese businessmen came in and sat next to me. Initially, I paid little attention to them until they began to start a friendly, if rather disjointed conversation with 2 foreign tourists on the next table. Halfway through my meal, the group's conversation started to stall as the businessmen only had basic English. I felt bad for the tourists who were ineffectively trying to move on from the topic, and I was debating whether or not that I should say something, despite not being part of the conversation. I didn't want to be rude, but I heard the businessman discussing how to say, "I'd like to pay for your meal," in English. Seizing this opportunity, I blurted out to the tourists, "Excuse me, guys, but they're saying they'd like to treat you to your meal." At once, all the heads turned towards me, and I started to regret saying anything at all. One of the businessmen jokingly said that I should have said something a lot sooner, and then both began to engage in conversation with me. I shouldn't have worried about joining in. I was well received, and it gave me a chance to further practice my Japanese, make connections, and share stories about my own adventures. After a super conversation, the same businessman who wanted to pay for the tourist meal also said that he would pay for mine. Out of this story, I realised just one small decision, spontaneous as it was, could make for a memorable moment. Getting a free meal and trading stories with fellow travellers was certainly not on my original itinerary. Josh, from the city known only as Seattle. I thought there was going to be a twist there, where the Japanese guys are going to be like, "Wait a minute, we didn't say that at all. You put words in our mouth. We're not paying for anyone's meal."
That would be really funny if you just played tricks on people going, you could sort of walk around going, yeah, they're actually saying that they want to buy you lunch and give you a car. We didn't say that.
They want to buy you a hotel room. Yeah. I mean, Josh being clever there, chancer. He heard there was a free meal on the ticket, and he was like, "Oh no, I'll do." He was just sort of putting that kind of like altruism into the ether, and hoping that Josh
from the coffee city known as Seattle, Washington, that you get a little bit back. I mean, he says that he's from the coffee city known as Seattle, Washington. I see Seattle, visiting it for the first time last year, as very much the home of that awful chewing gum street. Have you seen that street that's just covered in chuddy? Basically,
it's every
I think
street
it was outside
in the
a
UK,
gig venue or something. People started putting, or theatre, people started putting chewing gum on the wall. And then more chewing gum ended up on the wall. And then over a few years, they've just got this whole street decorated with disgusting, drippy bubblegum, chewing gum nonsense. And it smells like mint. It's disgusting. Absolutely. I think it's how COVID started, quite frankly.
That is pretty horrible. I like Seattle. It's kind of cool. I remember when I was there, I had a pizza named after John Candy, a beloved Canadian actor who's sadly passed away a very long time ago, 1995. But I remember being really delighted to have a pizza in his honour. I went up the Space Needle. Is it the Space Needle? A really cool
Space
building.
Needle, yeah, that was quite fun. I mean, after on a hangover, it's not great,
trippy.
to be honest. Just feeling that, because it also rotates as well. Part of it rotates and part of it doesn't. And you're just a bit like, oh, no, thank you.
It's also got like a monorail from like the 1950s. I think they had a World Fair, World Expo or something. And they were like, I know what people want, a monorail. And it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it before, so it was kind of
I think
funky.
like Seattle,
Pike Place
Valencia,
Market.
kind of all these places that had like world fairs back in the day, like really kind of exciting.
Monorail.
It reminds me of
Monorail.
when I was a kid, they had like a harvest festival in I think Gateshead, near where I came from. Did
they build a monorail?
Well, I think they might have had a monorail there, and they also, but this garden festival, they would pick it up and transplant it. I think it started in Glasgow, then it ended up in Gateshead, and then it went somewhere else. They just pick up these plants and go, there you go, plebs. You've got some public art there that you can go and see.
I mean, I love a monorail, but there's been like the new thing is Instagram reels are all over the place, and you know, people doing short videos on Japan, tourism videos. And I see the new one is like, Japan has a floating railway, and it's just a fucking monorail. Just call it a monorail. A floating railway. It's just a monorail in Chiba somewhere. And they're like, Tokyo's secret monorail. Well, it's not even in Tokyo. Chiba's its own city. Yes. If I'm going to be pedantic. And I was really angry. And God, don't get me started on it. Don't get me started on our old friend, Johnny Somali. In our story today, we had some foreigners being nice in a restaurant. Nice to the point that you get a free meal, right? If you're not a dick, if you're nice and you talk to people and you make the effort, you get free things in Japan. If you're the opposite of that, you get fined 200,000 yen. Isn't that right, Pete? The tale of Johnny Somali in Japan finally comes to a close this week, once and for all, hopefully.
His Japan leg of the World Charm Offensive tour is certainly coming to an end. Real name Ramsey Khalid Ismail, or Ismail rather. Ismail was fined basically £1,000 or $1,500 by a Japanese court in the last week for playing loud music at a gyudon restaurant in Osaka last year. Now, bearing in mind that Johnny Somali is someone we've spoken about quite a lot on the show here and there, because he's kind of got up to all kinds of low jinks all around the Tokyo sort of area and Osaka. But last September, Somali was finally arrested for trespassing on a construction site and was even arrested for disrupting a restaurant by entering the kitchen and playing loud music. He had been in custody pre-trial. He has requested leniency in this particular case. It was an embarrassing act that inconvenienced employees and customers. I swear that I will never record or distribute any kind of video in the future. So maybe he's going into just pictures of him being a little shit around the gaff. But it is part of an increasing trend of dickhead YouTubers, dickhead kind of influencers going to Japan, because everyone's so polite and you can get away with all kinds of nonsense. And he's someone that has been the poster boy for bad behaviour. But there are people sort of pushing the envelope pretty constantly.
Pushing the envelope of twattery.
Yeah.
And I dread to think what you're going to do next time you're in Japan.
Licking it, resealing it with the spit on it.
Honestly, I think the reaction I've seen is mixed. I think a lot of people are disappointed that, he didn't get anything worse than this. Like, I don't even think he got deported. I think he had to leave Japan immediately because his tourism visa had expired. Tourism visas in Japan, 90 days long, and he wasn't able to extend it. So they were like, you're out of prison, now fuck off. But now when he does come to Japan again, if he does, which I'm sure is unlikely, when you have a conviction and you enter Japan, you have to sort of write, don't you? Like, have you ever been involved in anything? He'll have to write, yes, I was in prison for 3 or 4 months for being a bellend, and now they might not let him in. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be back unless it's some sort of incredible apology tour, but I don't think Johnny Somali's the man for that or capable of that. I think obviously a fine of 200,000 yen isn't that much. It's more of a symbolic thing, right? But he did still spend 3 or 4 months in a jail, and that can't have been fun. I mean, and he probably had a lot of time sitting there going, "What a dickhead I am! What did I think was going to happen?" You hope he did.
I mean,
anyway.
I don't think this will have necessarily this has increased his legend. I think it's fair to say, and I don't think he'll necessarily be thinking twice about doing more of this stuff, because obviously he'll be making more than 200,000 yen or $1,000 out of the videos that he makes. So, I mean, you do have to kind of stop, and although it's quite emotive, and Japanophiles can be quite gatekeepy when it comes to Japan. So maybe you have to kind of like have a think about just general human rights. Should you be deported for playing a bit of music in a restaurant? Should you be deported for being an idiot on a building site? I mean, I've done stupid stuff. I've had a few, but in Japan and outside of it. But so it is kind of like I guess we do have to kind of stop and think, what does it actually mean fundamentally for general tourism in Japan? But so it's not necessarily how I'd.
Well, again, like his tourism visa was up. I think he should have been deported. If in the event that his visa was still valid, I would have deported him because he had consistently being a dickhead, right? Doing something once or twice, but I'd do something consistently over a 3 to 6 month period and be so reckless. Does
any of this because I've seen people do similar stuff and they wouldn't even find the inside of a police cell. I mean, you've got like a Japanese national would not find the inside of a police cell for this sort of behaviour.
In the UK? Well, I don't know. I don't know if a Japanese national in the UK broke into a construction site or broke into someone's truck or just harassed people in restaurants and trains, I would like to think something would happen. It probably wouldn't, though, because
get a punch
there was
in the nose,
that guy that did do the same that last year, right? There was a guy that was literally breaking into people's houses, and I can't remember his name, and he was on Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan threw him off.
Oh, the guy in London. I thought you meant the guy who does who goes around finding deserted homes to kind of squat in for the night. He's done a few in Japan, and that's I do find that sort of thing quite interesting. But yeah, similarly problematic. You can't get away with that kind of caper. So yeah, I think fundamentally you've got to think about how far you're willing to go to protect. But I think with Somali, as his stage name goes, do you not think that like when we've spoken about this sort of thing before, he's doing this because physically he thinks that he's untouchable, but in anywhere else, I think he would be beaten the shit out of. Not a big guy, is he? Not a big guy. That's all I'm saying. Not a big guy.
Well, in other countries, he would have probably been physically assaulted on a train or at a bar or a restaurant. And of course, he was punched in the face in Shibuya quite aggressively. So, yeah, it's honestly, I think people like that consistently being a dick need to be made an example of, so they don't do that sort of thing again. There's being loud in public's one thing, but actually harassing people and annoying people. I can. Being in Japan all this time, that's the worst thing. You say that,
right? Chris. I saw an influencer, a YouTuber, you might say, in a boxing ring, hitting another man, and I think he should have been deported from Los Angeles for that kind of caper.
Deport me from Los Angeles. I don't want to go to Los Angeles again. Horrible place.
No.
Get me to Seattle.
Nobody
That's
does.
where the action is. But that hopefully is the end of the Somali saga, and hopefully it draws a line under kind of twatty influences in sort of just in Japan, foreign influences coming here. Obviously, it's happened a few times last year. Lots of people called them out. Let's hope that in 2024 it's not something we need to talk about again, because it takes the fun out of everything. And, regardless of what happens to Johnny Somali now, I don't care. Maybe he'll travel the world and be an absolute arsehole elsewhere. But it's nice to know that I can, we can walk around the streets of Japan now, not going to have to bump into him playing music loudly or harassing people or being a prick. And that is a happy conclusion as far as I'm concerned.
Collab. Sounds like a collab's in the offing for me. That guy's money.
He can go to the UK all he wants. Go to the UK, go and see Pete's car. Go and try and break into Pete's car, Johnny Somali. Not even Pete can get into it.
Stack.London, enjoy the new Johnny Somali podcast. He's an uncompromising visionary.
Oh my God. I wouldn't put it past you, Pete. I wouldn't put it past you.
No. You're on board, didn't I?
I think I would be intrigued. Johnny Somali in your car as a podcast. But he's got to break into your
Johnny
car.
Somali. He'd get in the boot for me. he's good at breaking and entering. He'd get in.
In the boot with Johnny Somali. And Pete, oh God, what a horrible thought. Fucking hell. All right, we'll be back in just a moment, guys, with your stories, comments, and questions in the fax machine.
Wow.
And we're back with the fax machine. What have we got this week? Mr. Donaldson, fill us in.
We got a message from Pablo from Tijuana. Wow. Hello, charismatic Chris and picturesque Pete. First of all, thanks for all the entertainment over the years. I had the opportunity to visit Japan with my family over the holidays. During my trip, I had my first experience using Uber Eats in Japan. Oh, exciting. I know the culture is to never tip there, so I didn't. But ever since I've been wondering, was this the correct decision? In this scenario, should I have tipped, as I've been feeling a little guilty since? Have a great day. Pablo from Tijuana. Is this
Good
new
question.
kind of gig culture economy getting these tips sort of sneaking in here and there?
I mean, if I do it on Uber Eats or Wolt, I always tip because I just kind of picture this person, just running into a rest, like parking their car up awkwardly or their bike in front of like a McDonald's. Not that I would, not that I'd ever order from McDonald's. Park up their bike in like Shibuya Crossing, dash inside, get the bag, get back on the bike, cycle away, whatever. I just think, God, that I feel bad that they're going to this effort for me. So I do tip them. But I wonder, because obviously in Japan we don't tip. But I do as a rule of thumb, and I'd recommend it. Let's be nice.
Yeah.
We don't tip at restaurants though, so that's good.
I think some sort of DoorDash kind of companies, some DoorDash companies in America, they allow you to tip, or they allow you to sort of dangle a tip as like, I'm going to give you a $5 tip, and then when the food is delivered, you can sort of pull that tip away effectively, which is I know that kind of protects the consumer, but it really screws over the dickhead. The dickhead screws over the person who's ordered the food from the dickhead. Effectively, it's pretty rough.
That's pretty rough. So I give Barry a $5 tip. He's on his way, and then it arrives.
Barry Somali.
And then I'm like, actually, got the food now. I don't really feel like the tip.
Not
I'll just
good enough.
Get rid of that.
You've eaten one of my
awful.
bag of carrots.
You got bigger things to worry about if that's the case.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. We got a story from Nick who says, Hi Chris and Pete. I hate bugs, but for some reason YouTube recommended me videos of the Mukade, the venomous Japanese centipede. After watching them, I don't want to go to Japan in February on my trip that I've pre-planned. Have you ever encountered one in your house? I've read horror stories on Reddit where one person woke up with one of them crawling on their face. Is there any advice you can give for dealing with the Mukade? Also, is it true hotel rooms on higher floors encounter bugs less often than rooms closer to the ground floor? All the best, Nick from California. I think I've seen a Mukade like 6 times, and I forget they're venomous. You don't have to worry about them. I've seen a cockroach on my pillow at a shit love hotel in Shibuya, and that really put me off the concept of love hotels, especially in Shibuya. But yeah, I would say, and also the only time I saw a cockroach at a restaurant was in the basement. So I think the lower you go, the more likely you are to find bugs, to be honest. And also, if you're near like a river in the countryside, rivers seem to attract spiders, bugs, nightmares, So, have you ever seen one? Probably not, right?
I saw a sign outside the manga museum in, I think, Kyoto. There was a little sign saying, "Be careful, there's a caterpillar in here. There's a centipede in here that will bite you." And it's just quite... It's quite sort of whimsical, sort of being outside, got a bit emotional.
Whimsical.
Centipedes about the Mukade. I think they were quite. It was quite funny because they were just like it felt like a sort of whimsical kind of like creature that lived in this little manga museum.
Whimsical creature. I mean, I've never. Luckily, I've been lucky not to be buggered by a Mukade or anything like that. Though I did get stung by a bee for the first time. In the UK, when I was back last year, I was driving around, having a time of my life. A bee flew in through the window. I just felt like it was a fly, so I hit the back of my neck where it was, and it stung me. And it was extremely painful. It was more the shock, right? I remember just sort of tensing up and being like, "Arr!" It was horrible. And for the next 2 minutes, it was exceedingly painful. And then it went away quite fast. So that was scary. I know Charlotte got stung by an actual hornet while she was in Kyushu years ago. She was walking through a field of wheat like Theresa May, and a hornet stung her foot. And it was a homestay, I think, and she said the person running the homestay quickly grabbed her foot and sucked the poison out there and then, which is
kinky.
Just disgusting.
Come on, yeah, opportunist. That's all I'm saying, guys. Opportunist. We've all been on the internet. Unbelievable.
Oh God! And she sucked the poison out and saved the day. Or I think I would have just rather had the poison in my foot, but each to their own. I don't know.
That was my excuse in that toilet that time.
Oh God! Bloody hell. We got one last question from Lazarus on YouTube. He says, "Hello guys, I only started listening to this podcast since it was added to YouTube, so having no context for Pete Donaldson. How did you meet?
Just knob jokes, pretending to do naughty stuff in toilets. Basically that's the context you need."
I met Pete Donaldson in 2018 while doing Natsuki the movie. I was filming with Natsuki in London. We got a message from a weird guy. He was like, "I got a radio station 2 streets away. Would you like to come on it?"
Yeah.
And I knew the radio station, Absolute Radio, because I listened to the 80s Absolute Radio station. Lots of different radio stations in the radio station. The 80s one, I had that on repeat, playing all day when I was at university. So it was kind of really lucky. As I've said before, if Pete had emailed Natsuki and I any time during that trip, any other day, we couldn't have done it. But we were in London that day, 2 blocks from you. So we just went, "Oh shit, yeah, let's go on the radio. Let's meet Pete." And we went around the corner, met Pete, and then he was like, "I'm coming to London. I'm coming to London now. No, sorry, I'm coming to Japan. Give me a free tour." And I was like, "That's the real reason he's invited us onto the radio station."
I just said I'm coming to Japan, and you said meet me in the Fox Village. So we went to the Fox Village, and we had a lovely time.
We don't talk about Fox Village anymore. But it was 2017.
Why has all of the YouTubers gone off Fox Village? Everyone used to go to Fox Village every single time, and then now nobody talks about Fox Village. These foxes are just roaming. They just let them out. They're just like, we can't continue.
I think Fox Village, things got out of hand. I don't know what happened.
Things got out of hand. Wow, too
many foxes. Too many foxes spoiled the broth, and I don't know really. I think it just got too popular, and the foxes bred, and there's just so many in this big enclosure. Even the big enclosure is probably a bit too full now. But I digress. But that's how I met Pete. He chanced his way into a visit to North Japan. I gave him a whirlwind tour. I got a speeding ticket the same time that Pete was in the car. And then he was like, "Let's do a podcast now." And I was like, "All right then." I never want to do a podcast. I said I'd only do it if I had someone to do it with, and Pete lured me into it. So there you go.
So those of you complaining on the YouTube comments, I am a necessary evil to get him to do a podcast, all right?
And if you want to see the best of Pete Donaldson, go back, watch the original Journey Across Japan. Pete joined for 4 episodes. He got very, very lucky. He got the Osaka and Kobe videos with nightlife, fun, and beef. They're quite fun episodes. Go and check them out. Yeah. Osaka one in particular. It's a classic. And that's the story of Pete Donaldson. And he's done nothing else since.
I've been resting on my laurels.
Keep the stories, questions, comments coming into abroadjapanpodcast@gmail.com or comment below down in the comments. But for now, guys, have yourself a great few days. Check out the episode where Ryotaro trashed my car on Abroad in Japan, and we'll see you later in the week to do it all over again, right back here on the Abroad in Japan podcast. Bye for now. Have a good one. Stay out of trouble.